Oh, hi, everyone. Open meeting,
Yes.
motion to start,
Motion,
okay,
yes.
great.
Motion to start and also a motion to nominate Rich as chair of the committee.
Yes,
Second,
yeah.
Okay, John, it says that you're Michael Hoffman, it says everyone is Michael Hoffman. I see, okay, fine. Everyone is Michael Hoffman today.
And Michael Hoffman is everyone.
Very true. Yes, I accept the nomination, thank you very much. Is there any vote?
I don't think we don't have.
Any objection? Objection?
I'm not voting.
He's not.
Oh, good.
Ouch.
Finance is gonna be dull and boring. Do you think the finance meeting is gonna be dull and boring? No. Welcome everyone to the very first reinitialization of the finance meeting. The first thing I want to do is one little housekeeping thing. How do we like this current date and time? Do we like, no, right? I'm with you, no. Can we switch this to either the Monday right before the informal or the Tuesday right before the formal at 5 o'clock? Does that work for
I
people?
would prefer the Tuesday.
I would-
because the informal is
Sorry,
too long.
5 o'clock will work for me. Well, it will work, I'll be late.
What if it's like 5:15?
5:15, maybe by 5:30, pushing it 5:30.
Yeah, 5:50, 5:30, I think is.
Yeah, I won't be able to get here.
We need a full hour.
It depends, generally not. It used to be, I believe it used to be the hour before the formal back in the day, and we were pretty much always done in, often had some time to spare, not necessarily a lot. It really depends on how deep you guys want to go.
Let's say 5:15 on a Tuesday.
5:15.
The only thing that I would comment about is if you want to take any actions that involve going in front of the council, you would have to wait a month pretty much because.
That's fine.
Okay.
The other thing is that people might start drifting in like a quarter to as well. So we need.
Close the door.
So
the
the public
5
meeting
o'clock
doesn't have to
doesn't
go through,
correct?
So 5,
That's true.
I mean, that time, but I will be like 5:15, so I won't even miss that much of the meeting. I can get filled in. It won't be missing that much of it, you know what I mean? Yeah, so I'll be coming in, I'll just be dragging in,
Yeah.
yeah, about 5:15, 5:30-ish. I
Yeah,
can get in here,
okay.
so that shouldn't be.
Let's move it to-
And would we say the Tuesday before
So that's the formal meeting. Tuesday.
the formal? So we'll say, yeah, 5:15. 5:30.
Yeah.
That sounds great. Okay, before the Tuesday. Okay. Does that work for you, by the way? Ms. Fennel? Oh,
Let Tracy and Sherry know, please.
yes, of course.
Just remind me.
No, but I'm just gonna like change the time without telling anyone. Thank you. Not my first rodeo. All right, you're okay, Mary Fennel?
Yes.
Yes, great. 5:15 ish on Tuesdays prior to the formal. First order of business, perfect. All right, now, next we'll go to the treasurer's report.
You have a hard copy in front of you. I do have my computer here. I could share a screen, but there doesn't appear to be anybody on except for Linda, and Linda's gonna be sent a hard copy. Linda, do you want me to share my screen anyway? Okay, because I'd have to log into the online meeting and all of that. Sure. I'm here to do. Okay, so couple things. The first page is basically, sort of the traditional little track report that I do. It can be anywhere from 1 to 3 pages, depending on what we're talking about and what we're going into. I also printed out a report that we can go through in a bit of detail. I also want to talk about different permutations of the report to see how people would best like it to be seen. So I will get to that in a minute. So you'll notice that the one that I submitted was actually 2023, not 2024, because there's not a whole lot going on in 2024 yet. And I thought 2023 would give you a better idea of the kind of data that you can get off of this report. So I'm actually going to talk about that last. We're just going to go through some of the 2024 budgets so far. So these are actuals just through February, so just 2 months, or about 16.67% of the year is over. Not everything is exactly calendarized, so it's like you don't necessarily expect, 8.3% of all revenues to come in every month for 12 months. We know we get certain things quarterly, like sales tax that have impacts. We know we get our state aid money, which is added incentive to municipalities money. We don't get that till November and December of every year. So, but it does give you, for some of the things that are a little more even, it gives you at least a ballpark idea of sort of where we are. So you can see, for example, on and off street parking, that's basically the parking meters. We're about 11% of budget and about 14% of where we were a year ago. So that's pretty much in line. That's another one that varies a lot because it kind of depends on when Stan comes in with his big buckets and puts them through the counting machine and gets them to the bank and back. And so sometimes it happens multiple times a month, sometimes it doesn't. Front Street Municipal Lot, you all know what that is. So we're at 76,000 versus a budget of 400,000. So we're about 20% versus budget on that front. Parking and other permits, we're already at 32 against a budget of 75. And in terms of parking tickets, we're about 16% versus budget. So all in all, those are looking perfectly fine, nothing to be concerned about, in my opinion at least. Building permits and fees, and again, you can see for plumbing permits, we're at about 6% versus budget, and building permits, we're at about 11% for an overall average of about 10%. So it's a little lower than where we are year to date, but, you know, building permits tend to be pretty, they tend to fluctuate a lot. People either come into the project or they don't. You know, they come into the big project or they don't, so it's not really, I don't think anything that we should be overly concerned about at this point in time, especially if you look at, you can see that the 2024 budget was 225,000, but we actually brought in 406,000 last year. So that budget number should be achievable. But again, the other thing you have to remember about building permits is it really depends on the project. And last year we had one project alone that was $80,000 just for one thing. So we probably may or may not have another one that big, you know, in 2024.
So in the budget for this year, the 225, was it because of one or two really big ones in the prior year that you brought that number down?
We didn't, I don't think that we brought it down versus what the 2023 budget was.
No, but I mean compared to actual, so we had a lot last year because of one or two really big projects.
Yes,
Got it.
yes. You also have to remember that, you know, we're doing the budget in September or October. It has to be done by the beginning of November. So that basically means there's 2 months
Right.
of more actuals that we don't have visibility on, as well as more beyond that, because there's usually some that come in the beginning few months of, or in this case, the beginning few months of 2024, that will be charged back to 2023. And we're gonna talk about that a little more and how that works when we go through the budget report, because currently the report that you have in front of you does not include any revenue chargebacks, but it does include a fair amount of expenditure chargebacks, so.
Is 2023, I'm sorry, is 2023 more or less a typical-ish year of the past 5-ish several years?
Yeah.
Is it wildly one way or another, like differentiate,
It's
more
pretty
or less the same?
interesting.
All right.
But that, I will get to that as a question as well, because, although I didn't put it on this report, I do have the ability to put prior year's actuals. So if you wanted to look at what 2021 was, 2022, and then 2023, we could do that as well. Anything on other parking revenues or building permits and fees? I find it's generally easier to like talk about them as we go through
Yeah.
rather than wait till the end, so.
We have a resolution about fixing some parking meters.
Yes.
And I don't know, is it 11? How much is it?
It's about 10,000.
10.
Yeah,
So it's better for us to fix them than, I mean, because we're also working, the parking committee is working
Right.
towards, so what I'm trying to calculate is it's better to fix them, to have the revenue from those fixed will be higher than waiting to have them all together.
I think it's a combination of, the revenue would probably offset the expenditure. I also
Yeah.
think it's also an issue of, parity across the city, because if you're taking meters out of certain places, because we need them in more high traffic places, then you're basically letting certain areas sort of get away with not having to pay meters, which is kind of an unfair burden on the people that are.
Definitely, yes. The only thing is that in a year and a half, there will be a waste because we may have a totally new system.
Right.
So these brand new meters, they're not gonna be used anymore.
Right.
It's a shame.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's one choice or another, so.
I just wanted your financial opinion.
No, and the thing is, we don't know when we're moving. We got the money budgeted for the new parking system, but yeah, we don't know when that's actually gonna be rolled out and how long it's gonna take to roll out, and I'm sure it'll be a better rollout than our general ledger or our accounting software has been, so let's hope. I just have this on as a placeholder. Oftentimes I will take it out until there's something to report and then put it back in, but since this is the first meeting, I just wanted to keep it as a placeholder. These are the other, major tax items that we generally look at on a trended basis. So sales tax, mortgage tax, and lodging tax. So sales tax, we get paid 4 times a year. And it comes from the state to the county and then from the county to us. Mortgage tax also gets paid from the state to the county and from the county to us, and that gets paid 2 times a year. And then lodging tax, it's 4 quarterly filings, but there's always somebody filing late or, people registering and then, so technically there's 12 months that we're seeing some sort of revenue from lodging tax, although, 4 of them are significantly greater than anybody else's. So sales tax is a good example. Sales tax is probably one of the best examples of what we were just talking about in terms of chargebacks, because we don't get that check from the county until the end of January, sometimes early February, but it is all 2020 prior year income. So what you'll see is in this number, the 2.413, you'll see when you look at the 2023 actuals and the attached report, it is less than that because we have recorded the 600 and change that we got for the 4th quarter, but we haven't charged it back yet. Expenditures are easy to charge back. Expenditures, when the clerks go and put in their vouchers for payment, they can just say, hit the prior year. And that happens. Revenues, you can't do that with because the revenues have to tie to cash. So the cash doesn't come in until January 2024, so we've got to record it in 2024. So then we have to do behind the scenes journal entries to say, except that doesn't really belong there, it really belongs here. So we have to do journal entries at the end of the year saying, identify the revenue in 2023, but you can't identify the cash in 2023. So you have to make it a receivable, then you have to reverse it out in the beginning of the next year. So it takes some revenue out of 2024. So when I talk about chargebacks, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. And that's why you'll see that right now the numbers for 2023 don't necessarily align. That makes sense? Okay, so, speaking of that, we are in the process of trying to close the 2023 ledger. So basically, this is the last month that we let, the clerks do chargebacks. And then, at this point in time, we're starting to do all the various revenue chargeback. There's also a whole lot of other stuff that goes into it, ways that certain things have to be recorded that I won't go into all the details unless you want to hear but there's a fair amount of work that's involved in getting that done. So the goal is to get what has been up till now called the annual update document, but New York State, in the course of infinite wisdom, has decided to call it something slightly else now. I can't remember what that is, but in any case, it's the annual reporting that we're due to the Office of State Control, and that's due by May 1st of every year. So basically between now and May 1st is us trying to close the books, trying to do all the chargebacks, trying to move the various things that have to be recognized. Then once that's done, we already have the auditor scheduled to come in mid-May to start the auditing process, which is substantially better than what we did for 2022, which was starting in November. So hopefully that will be a little less traumatic. As I think most of you know, we converted to ADP payroll at the beginning of the year. It has been a huge pain in the ass, pardon my language. I know you're all delicate flowers, so I will try to contain my.
Is it still a hassle?
It's still a hassle, yeah, it's gotten, it gets better every week. They did not do a good job at all in implementing us, period. They said they could do all these things. Frankly, I think they handed us to an inexperienced implementer who did not understand the complexity of what we were doing. I will say that, my team is now working on, they also have a whole onboarding thing. So for the first time in the city's history, we're gonna have a digital onboarding thing with all forms that can all be filled out online. It's not gonna be these paper things anymore. each one of those forms has to be done individually. And it's great, it's like you make one and all you need to do, because, you know, we've got 5 different paperwork clerks, we've got 3 different unions, and then we've got non-union things. And the onboarding for each one is different. But you'd think, you know, at least if you create this form and all you have to do is change like 2 things, you can't even copy it and then change the 2 things, and you have to start from scratch and build another form. Having said that, though, the person that we're dealing with on the implementation side is actually great. So much to the extent where he is like saying, what do you mean you don't know how? He's like, I'm not supposed to tell you how to do this, but I'm gonna tell you how to do this. He's been extremely helpful. He has helped us identify several things that will make things easier. But it's still a big learning process. You know, I mean, the most perfect example I can give you of how stupidly this was set up is that, as I said, you know, we have 5 different clerks that do payroll. They might have different unions, but there are a lot of the same deductions, regardless of what department you work in. You would think, so each payroll clerk has its own sort of, you know, company, they call it a company, right? Which is what it's been like before too. So, you know, the clerk can only see, you know, the clerk's people. The department can only see department people. My office can see everybody, because we have to do all the reconciliations. You would think that the code in the clerk's company for, say, Nationwide would be the same code in the youth department for Nationwide. So you could run a report on one code and get all the Nationwide things across the entire company. Nope. And apparently they can't even fix it. So now we just have these things where they're like randomly different across things. So it's stupid things like that, really bad things. We had so many conversations. They're taking out taxes that the city doesn't pay. You know, we don't pay FUTA, we don't pay SEY. It was just bad. We've gotten most of it cleared up now.
Was there like a testing period?
No, we literally asked for, it's another example, like the salespeople were great. And I will say, the salesperson who is now, I think he's like a regional manager or something like that. He is the guy that got stuff done, because the person that was assigned to us as the implementer and her boss were basically missing in action. We were asking for login IDs for almost a month so that we could get some practice with the system before we actually ported over. We got them like 2 days before we had to do the first payroll. It was really bad. It was really
It's
bad.
like ADP, 8D ADP, like
Mhm.
they do like,
I have them for my payroll.
Yeah.
My company there.
software vendors.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, and I do think I think there were a couple things are problem. I think that the company as a whole was doing, as companies always do, but I think they were doing a really big push to get new business, and I think they overcommitted. I think in retrospect, we probably made not the smartest decision. It sounds logical, let's port over on January 1st. Tie it with our fiscal year, right? But how many other companies are also like, let's go on January 1st? So it ties into, it probably would have been smarter if we waited and ported over in middle year, but whatever. It's 80% there now, I'd say, on the payroll side, and the implementation side on the onboarding is actually going pretty well, so. But yeah, you know, people were working on their days off and through holidays and trying to get this stuff to work, so. Big shout out to Danielle and Sam, because they were really just, you know, dedicated to making it happen. Okay, enough of that. Okay, I know this is not the Public Works Board, the Public Works Board, which was created by the Sidewalk Improvement District, but I want to keep this on the list because my understanding was the plan is to get the Sidewalk Improvement District fees onto the tax bill for next year. That means all those fees have to be provided to the assessor in a form that she can upload into the assessment database by May 15th.
Does the Public Works Board exist?
Yes.
Maps for meeting in.
And how about the ones that they are exempt or they have a lower fee or the ones that they have?
That's all the public works board to determine. That's their responsibility. Their responsibility is to provide the fees by parcel based on the various formulas that are written into the law. And they just have to provide it basically as a fee in a fairly simple CSV structure that can go to Cheryl and or real property, so they can upload it into the assessment database, because it has to work basically the same way as prorates do. So for example, if, let's say I'm a veteran, right, and I sell my house to you, and you're not a veteran, the exemption becomes, you know, the exemption is technically not effective from the day that you buy the thing. But they don't update the assessment databases that way. So what happens is you get what's called a prorate bill, or at least you should be getting one. And that's basically saying, oh, you know, when you bought the house, it was still on, you know, the 2023 assessment roll, which still had the veterans thing on it, but you didn't qualify for it. So we'll go back and we're gonna figure out how much that exemption that you weren't supposed to have is, and then we tag that on as a second tax bill, basically. So it's gonna work basically similar to that,
And you have a system for that? I'm sorry, is there a system for that or just an Excel spreadsheet?
Excel spreadsheet. It's an Excel spreadsheet.
I don't think we're gonna make it this year.
Say again?
I don't think we're gonna make it in time for the show,
Yeah,
I don't think so.
because the first job of the board is to hire someone to run it. And that.
Yeah, the timing is not there. Let's be real.
Yeah, so I'm counting it.
So I guess the question is, what if any impact is there
right.
because of the whole ADA?
Very little. They gave us a long time.
Okay.
Once we enacted the law, I think they gave us 2 years to get it rolling.
So do we need to amend anything on the common council? Because we know we're not gonna meet this May 15th
No,
date deadline. I mean, this deadline is based on what?
assessment.
That deadline is based on what real property is saying with the lead time that so basically, Tompkins County does this. Apparently, there's gonna have to be I don't know how much time you spent looking at an assessment roll, but if you look at the assessment roll, there's a bunch of different sections. Most of it's like generally taxable. It'll have a list of, you know, like railroads and utilities is another section. So this apparently has to be its own section. So that's a whole brand new thing to start with that Cheryl and real property are gonna have to figure out, because that's not anything that I have, you know, insight over. But Susan Bowie, who's the director of real property, reached out to them and they said, it has to be a special roll, so it's gonna be its own section. And it has to be part of the final assessment roll. The final assessment roll comes out on July 1st of every year. So for them to be able to get the data, import it into the system to make sure that it works right and all of that, she's saying they would need it by May 15th.
Right, which we already know that we're not gonna make that deadline. So,
Pretty certain.
right, so I mean, are we just looking at next year then?
Probably.
I don't know, and that's sort of beyond my, because I'm not overly familiar with either the ADA
I
thing.
think
or
once the
whatever.
sidewalk committee starts getting together, then we can discuss this more in length. Right now, we're just getting an overview. and
Yeah,
we can
exactly.
talk about the tourism and everything else. But
Yeah.
once they are all organized, then we can.
What is this SID? What is this about? What is this,
The SID is the sidewalk improvement
Yeah.
district.
so are these sidewalks, are there like certain sidewalks in certain areas that are being repaired?
The entire city ultimately.
Yeah, well, that,
Mhm. Yeah, the
Oh.
district is the
So up
city.
here,
so-
we passed the law. We have to-
I think it was,
Last year.
Last year.
I
Yes,
remember.
so
there were
the
like
idea is that
markings.
all the sidewalks were gonna be redone.
Mhm.
And it just depends how big your property is and everything else. But you have to, we can send it to you.
No, all right, no, I was just wondering, because I was seeing some markings last year, like it was like certain sidewalks were gonna be.
There's gonna be, what she's saying is that there's gonna be, the assessor has to do like assessment fee to figure out what percentage of you're gonna have to pay to this sidewalk fee.
Property.
The
Property,
property owners will have to pay,
property
yeah.
owners, right. And then need to put it into the next assessment, which is gonna be June. And so they need all those numbers by May, so they can figure out how much you're gonna pay towards the sidewalk fund.
Wow, okay.
And those numbers are not easy because they involve many different measurements like square footage and lot size and.
The ordinance has, information on your frontage. So if you have a very narrow property, you're going to have less of a fee than if you had a longer property, but that is going into the general fund for the sidewalks.
It's actually going into its own fund.
Well, not your general fund. I don't mean general fund in that sense, it's going into a pool,
Oh, okay, gotcha.
sorry. For the
So basically property owners are gonna be, they're gonna be charged, but they're gonna also get some help,
Well, eventually, but there is.
right, basically?
That's something.
But there's gonna be, but there's gonna be a prioritization of, and like there are ones that's. How this came about was,
Mhm.
we were, in trouble with DOJ on ADA number of times. So we have to deal with those sidewalks first.
Gotcha.
And then one of the things this commissioner's board will be doing is then prioritizing where, you know, what's the next round of sidewalks that need to be repaired and so forth. This is like an annual fee
Mhm.
that we will pay.
This is like, it's a lot of sidewalks. I need to be repaired. We're getting-
Right,
Yeah.
so there's a fund that we're creating, and then over time, the DPW goes in and redoes the sidewalks.
And then there's basically no public works, I mean,
It'll
there is no like, right, for public works is what we're saying?
probably it'll be a contract.
Oh, very good, contract. Fair enough.
And the manager will probably be an engineering company, I would imagine.
And then the board prioritizes money, who does?
Yeah.
The board prioritizes who gets in the sidewalk.
The idea is,
How much they're gonna budget every year for it out of the fund, how the, sidewalks get prioritized.
and the theory is that for the single contract for the entire city, the fees, the price will go down, right? Contract scale.
Right, theoretically, if you're building, if you have to do a sidewalk for like a whole block, it's cheaper than everyone individually doing it.
Okay, let's go back to finance.
Let's go back. Sorry, Lo, we'll explain more to it.
All right, that's okay, thank you.
Next.
Okay, we had signed a contract quite some time ago to upgrade all of our software. We still have not gotten, going on that yet, not because of us, it's because of the vendor. Again, it's another one of these things where I think they, oversold versus their, implementation capabilities. So we've had some good meetings with them though. Looks like what we're going to do first is probably the general ledger software, which is, the main nuts and bolts of things. And the second thing will be utility billing. And a couple things that we're looking at doing for you, that's the water and sewer bills. And what we're looking to do on that front, I think is gonna make a lot of people happy because, right now they issue, so there's metered and there's unmetered. The overwhelming majority of people are unmetered. You pay a flat rate for your water and sewer. Some businesses have meters and some other things have meters. They're a very small percentage of it. We have been asked many, many, many times by many people, like, can I just pay my whole water and sewer bill upfront? And they have not been able to because the way it was set up in the water and sewer department is they actually issue a bill every quarter. So 4 sets of bills, 4 sets of paper, 4 sets of mails, 4 sets of stamps. What we're looking at doing is basically doing the water and sewer, at least for the non-metered ones, is doing them the same way we do the tax bill. Because one bill that goes out, 4 quarterly payments, you can pay it all day one, you can pay it on your 4 due dates. So,
And that will be online as well.
and that will be online as well.
Great.
Yep. And then just, grants, there's a lot of grants, there's a lot of grant issues, there's a lot of lack of clarity around grants, so, we're working on trying to get that a little more, at least getting all the people involved in grants sort of communicating on the same page, or, we've set up a shared Google Doc with the various grants we have, and we've been having some more. We created some, like a monthly meeting with them for engineering, because they're managing some of the grants for DPW, and so, okay. So resolutions for this month, that you will see or have seen if you've already looked at them online. So I'll just go through what they are in general. So the first one is, it's basically a housekeeping resolution. So what happened was, when we go out, so a ban is a bond anticipation note. So that's a short-term borrowing. You're basically borrowing money for about a year. When you go out to market and the different financial institutions come back and bid, they will often, they'll bid you like the interest rate, but then they'll give you a premium, which is literally, here's some extra money. You wanna borrow $1 million, we're gonna give you $1,050,000. Then what they do is they calculate the net interest rate by taking out that premium. So you have an effective interest rate, and that interest rate is how we determine how we can, obviously, the interest rate after. So because our 2020 audit took 19 months to complete, we didn't get a lot of useful feedback before doing 2022. So long story short, when I did the budgeting for the interest, so basically, you pay back the money and you have to budget for the interest, right? And the interest comes out of the operating fund, either the general fund or water, sewer, cemetery, who's ever borrowing money. Because everything was based on an interest rate, I put the premium money in the capital fund so I could take it out to apply it against the interest rate. And I budgeted the net interest rate in the operating fund. Well, it turns out that that's not really how you're supposed to do it. What you're supposed to do is you're supposed to take that premium and recognize it as revenue. So it did that, but since only the net interest was budgeted, we now have to take that premium money and basically now add it to the interest budgetary amount. So it ends up being a wash because you're adding, you're adding 60,000 in revenue that wasn't budgeted, but you're now adding $60,000 of additional expenses so that the interest is the gross interest, not the net interest. So.
And that came through, you found that out through the audit?
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah. But again, because that audit was 2021 was the first time we did any bans. And so we didn't get the results of the audit till March of 2023. So basically the 2022 budget and also the 2023 budget were already done at that point. So this is just to finish up 2023. And I have to, frankly, I have to go back and see what I did for 2024, because I wouldn't be surprised if I did the same thing, because
Right.
they didn't have the input at that time. But anyway, so net, it's a wash. You got extra revenue coming in, but then that extra expenditure going out. Encumbrances. So I think we all know what those are, but just as a reminder, if you commit to buying goods or services in this case, in fiscal 2023, we talked about before. So basically for January, February, March, if you get the product in by that point in time of the invoice, you can just charge it back. However, not everything always comes in that period of time, but at that point in time, we've closed the books. So what we do is we encumber the money. So it basically says, I bought this thing for $100,000. It's not showing up until like July, but I budgeted for it and I contracted for it in 2023. So, so basically, we need to take all of those monies, and on the balance sheet side, we have to record them as committed unassigned. That's all stuff you probably don't care that much about. But from a budgetary standpoint, what that basically means is we go and we amend the 2024 budget to put those monies back in, because we're not paying for the product till we get the product. So we're paying for the product in 2024. So that's what those are. The other things that get encumbered are any kinds of grants or donations, because those are generally donated for specific things. So if they're not spent in 1 year, it gets carried over to the next year. And that can work one of two ways, and you'll see that in the resolution. And it didn't used to, again, with more grants comes, more money, but also more complications. So a good example would be the Utopia grant. So Utopia, and I know they're gonna change it, so this isn't even about that. The original grant commitment was for 350,000, but they didn't give us 350,000. Then they eventually gave us 100 and something thousand. So in that case, whatever we haven't spent of the 100,000 that we got in cash, that gets carried over to expenditure, but not as revenue, because we already got that revenue. But now we need to book we need to budget the additional revenue, like the difference between the 350,000 they committed and the 100,000 that they actually gave us. So that needs to be booked as potential revenue for 2024 to offset the other expenditures. So it didn't.
What is the already? Are they giving us more?
They committed to 350.
Right.
Apparently they've committed to a lot more at this point, but I'm just dealing with the real facts right now, which is
Right.
they committed 350,000. They've given us approximately 100,000 of it. We've spent approximately 14,000 of that so far. So that means 100,000 is already revenue. That doesn't get carried over again. The difference between the 100,000 and the 14,000 gets carried over as an expenditure encumbrance. And then there's a second thing, which is the difference between the 100,000 and the 350,000. So another 250,000 they've committed and a corresponding expenditure for that. So it gets a little muddy now, but that's why you see both a budget amendment and encumbrances on that resolution.
I'm sorry, just going back to the grant meeting group, is that also, you said that you're gonna have a meeting of just about grants?
We've had a couple,
Is that the DRI grant also?
yes, all of them.
All of them, so all the grants, okay, fine.
I mean, there's something like 35 grants right now. So it's, and the problem is that, as you know, because you just brought up the one for the
Right.
CAC, it's like everybody's, like, the youth department's got its own grants, CAC's got its own grants, DPW does, and it's like, there's no centralization.
Right, that's the process.
There's, yeah, and, you know, certainly if you're somebody like Rob, you think, hey, I paid all the invoices and, you know, the project's done, I'm good to go. And I'm like, no.
Right.
Where's the money? Where are the reimbursements? Who submitted them? There's an outstanding interfund loan. You know, there are a lot of other
Right.
parts.
We don't have one person who manages all of that.
No, we used to back in the day with Sheena Salvino. She was the head of HTC.
Sorry, say again, did
Sheena
Sheena
Salvino.
Salvino was managing all the
Yeah,
functions?
yeah.
She was?
Yeah.
Well, could be, because also, usually, not in every grant, but usually most grants, there is, you know, an admin percentage. So she would do it and HDC or HCDPA, whichever one would get that admin fee.
Right.
So, I mean, I,
Who's
you know,
doing it?
what?
Who's doing
It's, all-
Sure.
Who's doing what?
it? Managing the grants.
depends on the grant.
Yeah,
Who-
That's the problem. I mean,
There's no ed.
but there are a lot fewer under Sheena too.
oh yeah, there were a lot fewer.
Right, years ago, there were fewer, right, yeah, like you said, there's 35 or
It's
something
a
like
lot.
that. And
It's a
who's
lot.
managing, right, who's doing all the follow-up work and making sure that everyone gets treated right, yeah.
Right,
Be the grant manager.
I think we do.
Mhm. Even on a part-time basis. Doesn't have to be full-time position, but because it's a lot for you, it's a lot for Michael Hoffman too.
Yes,
It does.
Yeah, Mike's been doing a lot of the admin part.
But he already does so many other things,
Yeah.
so
I know.
I think it grants something, I mean, but that's where the money is. Our city has to, we have to emphasize that.
And like you said, there's admin fees that come in with grants, they expect, you know, so that, right,
It's no room
There's money
for
there.
errors.
So, yeah, I mean,
It's a good point, Rich. I never understood why the in-house grants, where that admin fee goes, or if we actually take it. I mean, who's getting the admin fees on all of Rob Perry's grants?
oh, Delaware.
Okay, so shouldn't they then be doing all the work that you need?
They are doing it more so than other people
Got
are.
it,
But even in that case, there were a couple that slipped through the cracks when I was like,
got it.
yeah. Ultimately, you're on the hook. I mean, I would imagine where the buck stops.
yeah,
If the grant forms aren't, you know,
Yeah, absolutely.
done correctly. So,
yeah, because if nobody's, you know, like, yeah. Like there was $1 million grant reimbursement that somehow never got submitted until I asked, why do I still have this interfund loan outstanding? Because you're not supposed to have an interfund. That's, you know, when we do,
right,
we loan to a capital fund from the general fund, they're really not supposed to last any longer than a year. So, you know, and we've got so many of those now, I had to create a spreadsheet for that now too, because we've got probably 20 interfund loans right now. it's just, it's a lot. So yeah, the whole concept around grant management, I think if we're gonna continue to be as successful as we are in getting them, which is great, but yeah, we need some sort of,
Right, it shouldn't stop at yours, I guess, my point.
Right, but, and we should be able to finance it.
We should be able to finance with the admin fees. Unfortunately, you're the one who funds it, you know, right?
well, it's all anyway. Who knows what else is out there? I mean, that's part of the problem too. It's like, you know, I'm not even sure I know all of the grants that are outstanding. We did set up, like I said, Michael and Michelle and Rob and I got together maybe 9 months ago or so and started to put together a spreadsheet of all the grants and everything. So you know, we're in better shape on that front than we were, but there's still sort of a question of, okay, well, who's actually.
Right. Right.
And also, not to say, you know, not to mention the fact that I am not an expert in grants or grant management or grant administration at all. That is not anything, I mean, I'm learning some stuff, but there are people that, you know, do this professionally and know like all the i's to dot and the t's to cross, and I'm just going like.
And each one is different, so each grant is different, so, right, how you gonna know?
Like dealing with, yeah, like, yeah, they're so different.
Do you think we should have Phyllis or grant administrator?
I mean,
I mean, I know a bunch of them locally who handle grants for other groups who would probably be interested. But, you know, we couldn't just hire anybody. We'd have to go through a process.
I mean, even if it was a part-time position,
Yeah,
Yeah, they
but
usually
you
are.
also
They
read
usually are.
something like
I mean, it'd be based on, it could be based on the grants themselves. In other words,
Right.
what's out there.
it was a part-time position, like you said, someone to manage all the spreadsheets to make sure all the grants coming in and like, okay, here's a monthly report. This is what needs to happen this month, you know, this is the deadline for this, and this is the deadline for that. Because otherwise you're gonna be chasing, otherwise you don't even know what you're chasing sometimes.
Absolutely. I mean, I would support the idea.
Yeah, I think so.
I would think that, I know a couple of people who might be interested too. Who've done a lot of local grant management.
Right. Yeah, I guess we fall under your department, I don't know which department. Yeah. Grant management, under the mayor's department.
I think probably either under the mayor's department or mine.
Yeah.
I think we better under you, dealing with the end.
We take some pressure off of Michael Hoffman too.
Yeah.
Except that,
Yeah, he does so much work on the CAC grants.
I know.
Right. Yeah, it's a lot of work.
I just know the grants or the applications are all approved by the mayor.
Right. But he also does like the RFPs, make sure, you know, everything else, bids come in, batch and batch.
A lot of people do that.
Right.
I mean, Rob does his own,
Oh, right.
Anyway,
but you know, he's got a very particular
all right.
set of agencies that he deals with, and, you know, like you said, they're all different, but they're all very specific about how their stuff has to be done.
Right. I mean, it sounds like it could be something that's like a wash, because if there are admin fees, like go along with it. And you know, you don't wanna have something that, oh, we missed this deadline, and then all of a sudden we're on the hook for whatever.
Well, I'm certainly happy to have any more conversations on that. That would be helpful. But again, it gets to a certain point where, you know, like you're asking about the other admin piece, it's like, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't, and I know, all I know is most grants seem to have a set aside for admin fees, and I know that occasionally, sometimes they don't. That's pretty much all I know.
Yeah.
I just remember when, Friends of Oakdale, got a grant. They basically, one of the members of the group took the admin fees and did all the paperwork.
Mhm.
Simple as that.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. All right. Okay, so grant management person, let's talk about for next month as well.
We're all good on encumbrances. We all understand that.
All right.
Okay, cool. There's a bunch of small, personal service budget transfers. I went over them with Tracy to understand why. A couple of different, usually it doesn't happen, but occasionally it does. In this case, it's a couple different reasons. So again, payroll gets charged back so that you're, you may be paying them in the first week of January, but some percentage of that is prior year. So I think, there was, an error made in one of the chargebacks, so that accounts for some of them. One of them was my fault because, we had recently passed we call it, compensated absences. We recently passed a policy that limited the amount of compensated absences that could be on the books and required anything beyond that to be paid out. And I neglected to take that into account when I did my 2023 budget. So mine, you'll notice that mine is the biggest, requires the biggest adjustment, and that's why. Because Danielle had a bunch of comp time that she had to get paid out for. So that's on me, but I reminded them now very clearly when they tell me what they're, because there's also things you have to budget for, like vacation buyout, sick time buyout, healthcare buyout. So I've now reminded them they also have to let me know if there's gonna be a comp time buyout. Code enforcement relocation, you're all familiar with that, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so.
No.
No? So code enforcement has been looking for a home ever since we sold the building on Warren Street that they were in. They have been in, the old Social Security building on Warren Street around the corner for the past year and a half or so. Since it worked out so well to have some office space here, and since we are now going to be departing, the idea was proposed that, basically code enforcement is gonna take that wing, like, basically, there's a side door, so they're gonna have their own side door, they're gonna have an office on this side, an office on this side, and they're gonna put another door here, so, what's the word I'm trying to say?
Egress,
Yeah,
access.
so it limits the access to the rest of the fire department, they can just come and do code. So, it's not a huge amount of money, but like, rooms have to be repurposed, they have to be painted, carpet has to be changed. The biggest expenses are probably putting in the separating doors so that the fire department is separate. But everybody's pretty happy about it.
Mhm.
Everybody pretty much thinks that, code and fire sort of go hand in hand anyway, so.
Yeah, it's gonna save us money.
And it's gonna save us like 24 grand.
Yeah, they're located at Foot Doctor Place.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly. Yep. So they're gonna be here now, probably starting May 1st.
Who was in the offices before? Was it?
These spaces?
Go look at the signs, they're pretty, they're like,
They're company,
fire companies. Company.
Fire companies.
Yeah, when they consolidated, there used to be fire companies all over the place. They consolidated, I wanna say between 2004 and 2007. One of the,
meeting rooms for various companies.
yeah, so each
And then
company got its own.
Fire
room.
police has its own room, and then they could spare the rooms.
Oh,
It was determined, and they were happy to do it.
oh, great.
So, and then, the other major costs aside from paint and stuff like that, and the door, is relocating the office itself and the technology, so both the phone system and, the internet and all of that stuff. But it's gonna be good because they're gonna I think they're gonna go on the same phone system that's here now. They used to have their own inch cable. So they're just gonna be on Reed Central here, and they're gonna share the internet with the fire department, and we're gonna figure out how to basically, divide that cost up and hit both accounts. So it's kind of like a win-win for everybody, I think. There's a lot of available space here that's not used frequently.
Right.
And then, the tourism board, since it's near and dear to all of you, since you guys will be handing out the money, so you'll see a resolution, today that's, funding the promotional line, expenditure line by $30,000, and we are taking that money out of, the remainder of the tourism reserve, and that's gonna leave, I think maybe like $14,000.
Well, so I want to ask something about that, because we talked about this last year, I think. There was some money left over because people they didn't do all of the things that they had as their plan. So we are not increasing, we have a $30,000 allocation with this tourism.
That is what the resolution is proposing,
And we are
yes.
not planning to, that's, yeah, I just wanted to point that out, but we're not planning to say, oh, look, we have this money left over, so now it's gonna be 47. Still sitting on 37,
Mhm.
30, excuse me.
That is the
That's
PDA's,
what- that was the
that is the
discussion we
PDA's
had last
proposal,
year.
yes, that So we didn't initially budget it because we had intended on using these funds.
Because this money is going to be offsetting, yes, that's
And
exactly what I
does
was.
that impact how the event money is spent, or is it the same as?
No, it's just that if 30,000 if all of it had been spent last year,
Right,
we would have budgeted 30,000 for this year, because we are allowing 30,000. Since there was monies that were not spent because people didn't do the things that they said they were going to do, so it's
okay,
left over, so to speak. That money is now going to be used to pay for some of the 30,000 this year,
okay.
which leaves us now with just the balance to pay for this.
That's what we.
No, 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 no,
That's
no,
what we discussed now.
it's paying, it's covering all of the 30,000.
Oh, it is covering all.
And we're gonna have a little bit left in the tourism board that we can use for 2025,
Okay.
but not much, like maybe 15, 14 grand, something like that.
I just need some little, I'm kind of confused, not confused, but questions. What the tourism reserve funds, what is that? I mean.
Okay, so when the city passed its lodging tax, so you know the city has a lodging tax, right? Currently 4%, and I guess we're looking at raising it to 5%.
Mhm.
When the law was initially passed, it included a requirement that a certain percentage of the money that was collected
Mhm.
be set aside in a reserve fund, so funds that are for only specific purpose, and it was for a tourism board reserve. And those funds were to be used exclusively for helping to promote the city.
Mhm.
That went away after a few years. So the tourism board is not a live thing anymore,
Mhm.
but there was still money left over from all the money that was collected and put in there. And because it's what's called, it's typically a legal reserve, so there are legal requirements around it.
Mhm.
So what we're basically doing is saying, it's roughly, hey, out of all that money we collected, we spent most of it, there's like 50 grand left. Let's use it, you know, so we're gonna use it to pay for promotional events for the city
For next.
Right.
for 2024, for this year. So that's, yeah, so that's why you're seeing the resolution now, because ordinarily we would have included some money for promotional events in the regular budget.
Mhm.
But this year we didn't, because the intent was to take money from that reserve. Because it seems like a good fit, it meets, you know,
Right.
the promotional activities that we do, I believe, meet the requirements of
Fine.
helping tourism. So,
Right, so that's a.
So-
Purpose.
yeah,
And that's the next conversation after Heather's report. That's our next conversation, is to go over the event funding. So we have the $30,000 that we need to dig up, and we have a form to fill out. So, we're just gonna go through the form, make sure everything's okay.
Okay.
so I don't know how, it's already been pretty long. So, what I'm gonna suggest is, if you guys wanna sort of take a glance at this in your own free time, this is a kind of report that I can provide every month. Margaret, I added the year-to-date budget adjustments columns just for you. So you can actually go down and see where budgets have been, you know, money has been moved around. So I think these are obviously, you know, the 3 or 4, if you want to see budget adjustments, the 3 or 4 critical numbers. I can also, as I said before, I can give you actuals for prior years, like a couple, like 2021 and 2022. I don't know if that just makes it messier or whether it would be helpful, so you guys can all noodle on that and let me know what you think.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry to interrupt 1 second. I just got a text that the virtual meeting is not on, but Linda here. Right, is something wrong? I think so. Everything is correct.
She's on, so it must be working.
It's working right now. All right, never mind.
So I'm just gonna suggest you guys like take a look at that and see if it's enough. I don't have a whole lot of control over the format, obviously, but you know. If those are if that's the information you wanna see and I think I did it, I can do it one of 2 ways. I did it this way because I think this is how everybody usually thinks about wanting to look at the budget, because that's how we present the budget. So it's basically by department. It's not how we end up reporting the financial statements though. But I did it this way because I think that's good.
Wouldn't this inspiration show the LPL say this account balance summary for the last 3 pages or something?
Oh, that's a mistake. That must be something that was left on the printer. And you got I think right hand when they got it. You're the lucky one.
Yeah.
like the baby and the king cake. Yay.
Okay. So, this is great, and I guess you don't have to be coming here, always, you can email them to us, in case you're not here.
Yeah.
So we can do that way.
Right, I mean, I think this meeting is a little bit longer just because it's the first one. We're going through things, but otherwise we should be able to.
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
through them. Just more explanation, but then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Anything else? I think we have the.
We have other business.
We have the other business, we have the event. I guess stick around or
Sure.
want or no.
Yeah. Where else will we go?
Well, Heather.
No, he's told to me.
We're gonna talk about the event.
I don't technically have to stay here.
Right, I mean, we're gonna talk about, all I have left is talk about event funding.
Well, also, there are a couple of things that I think we would like to see on a regular basis. And one, like for example, big issue DRI projects, right? I think it would be very helpful to get a monthly report on what exactly is going on with the DRI projects. And what activity there's been in previous month, what the future is, and just some late slots. So there are a couple of things that won't show up in your report, but that are kind of large items in the city that I think would be useful to have monthly reports on. I know DRI is one that we talked about. So I don't know I don't know, Rich, if you want to talk about, well, other than Heather giving the, the citywide, financial summaries, what other items do you think we should be looking at on a monthly basis?
Well, I mean, the grants, we need to look at it a month.
I think that's a big one,
But,
and that's DRI as part of it.
right, but I don't know if it's necessarily Heather.
No, it's not Heather,
Right,
that's what I'm saying. I mean, aside from Heather's reporting, I think there are other things that we need as a finance committee to be paying attention to on a monthly basis of activities.
The DRI is not really financed, but. I can tell you right now what's happening.
We'll have enough time, because I think we need to discuss, do we discuss any resolutions that have to do with finance in the finance committee? I mean, we should.
Well, that's what I was
We
saying.
have a few of them now, but I feel we kind of,
I mean, like, for instance, the resolution for the 1% increase in the lodging tax. So we can make a guesstimate here that says, the lodging tax was X.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at, right, lodging tax here, so 2023 was what? 460,705, so we're looking at a 1% increase then, so like.
115.
Second,
115.
1% increase?
Yeah. Of the
Yeah.
460 divided by 4.
Right.
Is what you're gonna get.
115.
Right,
but
Is that money earmarked for anything or no? Okay.
right.
What is the rush? It came up just today that we get it.
We've been talking about it for quite some time.
We didn't get a resolution until today. And we're supposed to be voting on it tomorrow.
Yeah.
I've been trying to research what other municipalities have tax rates at this level.
And
I
I,
have,
we,
We've
I
been
think,
talking about that, and I've already mentioned numerous meetings, other municipalities that have 5% and 6%. But okay, if you say no,
But not this year, though.
correct. That is true.
well, I have looked into it. I remember I had.
Right, you were the one who first
And
suggested.
it is actually higher in other municipalities. The part I don't understand is why it's not going to the general fund as everything else, and then we'll give it to the housing, we give it here or there.
It does say that, no.
No, it goes to the housing.
Oh, it does?
Yeah,
I don't
I
think
guess so.
I don't think so.
I think it does say.
I know it was a suggestion, but
I think something we should pay, I did look up some of the municipalities, Vicky as well. I mean, something,
sorry. With a comment,
I think that one of the things that we need to weigh here is that at a certain point, we're having trouble as it is with some of our businesses. The county is also looking at doing tax.
we're carved out of it.
So
Well, you know, you're making comments that are just not have any basis in what's been in discussion and.
This council has not had any discussion about it. The things that are going on is that the county is going to be putting in a tax. We also have state tax on lodging. Our tax is currently at 4%. And if I am looking at my stay, and now, yeah, great, let's take another 1% from people at a certain point. This is not necessarily good for business. Because they're looking now at getting a county, a city, an increase to state tax on their lodging. And I think I'd like to have some input and opinions from the hotels and from the industry as to how they feel about increasing the tax.
Just a moment, as they always do. But listen, I've already made it clear, the county, we are carved out of the county increase. Right then,
It is relevant because it's relevant because if I stay at a hotel and I'm going to be paying city tax and I'm going to be paying county tax and I'm going to be paying state.
and you're not listening, you won't be paying county tax. I just don't understand what you're saying, because it makes no sense.
So there's gonna be a lodging tax by the county, and we are carved out.
Correct.
Um,
We have our own tax.
their own tax. But what about other municipalities within the county that have a lodging tax? Are they carved out? You don't know.
No. They won't be, well, if they want to be, I don't think they are.
Why are they carving, why is the county carving us out?
First of all, we've had a tax and they have no tax right now. And because we have asked to be carved out, because we don't want to be tied into what they're doing. And they also don't want to be tied into what we're doing.
But couldn't they just carve us in at any time if they
Well,
wanted to?
because then we would have to have the thing go through the county.
We'd have to have our tax go through the current, our lodging tax go through the current. But like I said, couldn't they, now they said, you're saying that they're carving us out, but couldn't they just carve us in? What stops them from carving us in? What stops them?
We've elected not to be part of it.
We've elected that to be part of their tax. Oh, so we've carved ourselves out. They didn't carve us out.
It's a mutual agreement. And they're not even close to doing it, by the way.
All right, and so the increase,
Sorry, it's the only thing about the lodging tax increase is this single one-page resolution? Okay, I don't see anything about housing.
No, I didn't see it. Or-
Yeah, I read it. I didn't
No,
read it.
I don't know where I saw it.
At one point it was suggested. That's all.
Maybe it was, yeah. I think from last year, I think I looked into it and like I looked Rhinebeck, Saratoga, all around.
Tompkins.
Huh?
Tompkins. Tompkins also. I looked up some.
Yeah, so it's, yeah, I think it's 4 is okay. We can get a little bit more. Nothing wrong.
Albany is 6.
Yeah. Believe it or not, Great Barrington was so much. I think I was shocked, just like numbers, so I was keep looking.
so since it doesn't say in the resolution, there's a false fund that it goes to is to the general fund.
Correct.
We're fine.
Okay, that's more money.
All right, what else? Okay, ready, folks?
Yes.
Event form. All right, so what Michael Huffman did is he took the form that we had, which was a paper form prior for event funding. So we have like the $30,000 and we have all these organizations that want a chunk of it, right? So they have to fill out this form. So what he did was he put this form online as a Google form. This way it's not belonging to the paper, and no one has to stick it in the mail and blah, 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 right? And so we just get an Excel spreadsheet download when it's done. But there's still a few questions that we have to answer, such as,
So hang on a sec, when
Yes.
when I clicked on Michael's link,
yes,
like I said to you, I wasn't able to see all of this, but pretty much everything that's in the old form is gonna be in.
yes,
That
yes.
section that I talked
Yeah, if you go through, like, if you like put in some test dummy data to go through that old form, you'll see there are
about. It will
various
read
pages.
to the next page.
It'll bring you to the next
That's
page, yes. But there were some questions that were left out. Such as, a due date and the date for the meeting when the finance committee will review responses should be set and added to the top of the form. So currently, so where are we now? We are in mid-March. If we push this out even by the end of the week, when are all these organizations going to need to, we're gonna have to collect all the forms, look at
Discuss them.
it. I'm assuming we're already into April now. So even if we did everything,
May,
I'm gonna just look up the dates from last year.
but
we
we have, because some events are happening in
so
June.
many events are happening, so yeah, I mean, May is already 5 months into the month.
We're
So
so
as, I'm sorry, as these applications,
started later, that's the thing, I think.
as the application comes, they come in, we look over applications and we approve them.
Yeah, we're gonna have a deadline, so we're gonna do this all in one shot.
Last year, the initial deadline was, I think, March 31st,
Yeah,
which
They
we
started-
can't do that.
yeah, we can't do that. I mean,
Yeah.
I gotta push it back. Push it
Yeah, all
back.
applications are due, actually, no, it's all applications are due by March 15th. And then the review decision to be made by March 31st. So there was a 2-week window for decision making. So if we push this out to middle of April, we could have an April 30th decision date if we followed the pattern from last year.
well, when is our next meeting? Should we base on our next meeting is gonna be what? April? When? Sorry. So we're here, sorry, Margaret. Is our next meeting then going to be April 16th for the finance committee?
Every third Tuesday, right?
Every
Third
Tuesday,
Tuesday,
2, 3.
hour before.
So,
So if we had a due date of April 16th, we'd have them in hand.
right,
And it's not a very lengthy process to make a decision.
right.
So if we said April 15th was the due date, we'd have everything for April 16th.
For April 16th.
Let's
Yeah.
wait.
And then we could make our decision by April 3rd.
And then our next meeting, we can make our decisions.
I know, we
Actually,
could make that, we could probably make it, review them and make a decision.
right, at our next meeting, right,
Yeah, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, not the, yes.
right. So we can, okay, so let's give everyone a due date of April 12th. How's that? Because then we'll put it in. And so if we say that April 12th is the deadline,
Mhm. And then we'll have the meeting on the 16th.
we're gonna have a meeting on the 16th and we'll go over.
We'll have time to look at them and be ready to make.
What I'll do is, I'll send you Monday morning, email you, we'll get everything what we have. And I'll email you ahead of time, so this way you have a chance to look at it.
Okay.
And, because we're only gonna have like about a half hour, so it's like, it's right, fine. So if we do that, like,
So I think had a question on setting a cap,
say again?
setting a cap of 5,000.
Oh, yeah, there's a few questions. Hold on one second. Okay, so that's that. Event date, so edit description text that clarifies the funding can only be provided to events or projects that occur in the future. Well, that makes sense. Specific kickoff date can be determined based on the date of projected council meeting when funding will be approved. I also want to say the events should take place before March or April. Oh, so what he's saying is that, descriptive text that clarifies that funding can only be provided to events that occur in the future. Right, so we can't do anything, we can't give money to events that just happen,
Retroactive.
right?
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, this is only for events that will occur.
Exactly, so, and might also want to say the event should take place before March or April of next year. Do we want to say that?
That would be fair.
Is that doable? That event funding money can be used for next year? Next year?
Yeah, I don't think that's the best idea.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, so it has to be done this year.
It is, yeah.
It's too complicated. All right, fine. So it has to be done by December. This year. Okay, fine. The maximum we set to 5,000 because I don't think we've ever given anyone more than $5,000. Right?
I'm not sure, but
I don't think so.
Yeah, And we want to let people know they can't, like, it's not like we're funding their entire event.
Right.
We're just funding a portion of it. So we put a maximum of $5,000, great.
It also doesn't mean they get $5,000 because they want it. The
Right.
Halloween parade is not getting $5,000.
Right, right. Fair enough. That would be quite the Halloween parade. Alternate funding, removing, oh, yeah, so this is a good point. So we have a question in here, which was in these old forms about, tell us about your alternate sources of funding. Michael recommends removing this bit altogether. There's a section later on, ask identification of other funds that seems, duplicative. I don't know if do we need to know where they're getting other sources of money? Does it matter to us?
I mean,
Well, it was being sought or anticipated. So I think, the idea was to see what the scope of their expenses are and what are their entities.
Like the Halloween parade will probably not be getting any, maybe they will, who knows? Let's say there's parade X. What?
The idea was that they all are encouraged to look for other
Yeah.
sources than just city funds.
Yeah.
You know, we don't want to just be the only source.
and you also don't want to end up in a situation like we did with the tourism board where, oh, we committed, $5,000 to this thing that was gonna cost $25,000, and then they never came up with the other $25,000, so we've been sitting on $5,000 for 2 years waiting to find out if they're gonna try and claim it or not, so there's a certain amount of that in there too.
Is there an expiration date?
Well, that's what this resolution is for. That's,
Oh, sorry. Okay,
I
great.
don't see where it's duplicated here though. Because, there's just one section that asks on the old funds about their sources of funding.
Oh, right. No, that's not duplicated. It's saying that, asking them to identify. I'm trying to remember where that's.
It says other funding being sought or anticipated, and you have to put the source in there.
Are there two places where it asks for other funding?
I don't see that. I only see it in one section.
All right, so it's just one section. I'll double check with him, see what he's talking about. I don't know what he's talking about. Right, consider adding help text to the purpose of project section, something like describe the goals of your organization hopes to achieve during the course of this event project, which. Fine,
What we ask about is how it's going to benefit the city. There's a thing, the purpose of your project, expertise if necessary. Why should it be funded by the city and, how would it benefit the city in terms of.
and you're looking at the online form?
I'm looking at last year's one.
I mean, yeah, it's fine, right?
Just leave it as it is.
Right. All right, so that's great.
I was trying to find it, but I don't have one, but
Um,
I see the old one you got. I was thinking stuff, make sure.
no, you will not be able to find the new one online. You only way to find it, Mike can send us an email
Okay.
with a link. And you click on that link and it brings you in, because it's not actually online yet. If you send us a link.
All right, okay, so really, it's just, the deadline is gonna be 4/12, that Friday, the event date. And then I will make those changes. With Mark, send it out to all of you, and if everything seems fine, then we'll push that out to the city website and then send out a press release, right? Good. Okay. Anything else? Questions? No?
No.
are you saying that you're going to try and make the decisions during the next finance meeting as well? Because you just now set your meeting for 45 minutes, so.
That's an excellent point. There's a reason why we invited you.
I mean, I'm happy to bow out of the next finance meeting, so you can dedicate all of the time to the grants thing.
Unless what we do is, no, you're right, unless what we do a separate
We can
meeting.
meet separately, just to focus on this.
This is probably gonna be like an hour, you're right, yeah.
We could just find a time when we all meet and just hash it out and.
Well, why don't we do in April, the meeting to have this, can we have, why don't we do April for finance on Monday?
Or what about if the April
Leave
meeting,
it
what
on.
about the April meeting was just the events?
That's what I'm saying.
I mean,
But I
Can we
think,
live without
I
you for a
think
month?
Vicky's idea actually of not
Especially April.
not moving it to
Just
the
wait one
Tuesday
more month.
until May is a
May.
good one, because then, keep it at this, the day before the formal for April.
oh, okay,
Right.
fine.
So we'll just do that one more month of this day. Is that
So,
what-
so we can
Say
run,
what it don't
So
compress the.
rather than shifting to the hour before the formal in the month of April,
Mhm.
we'll do that in May. And for the month of April, we'll keep it as the day before.
So April 15th.
April
April
15th
15th, that's
is our next event,
Can we
finance.
make it 5:15?
oh, look at you. Yeah, right, April
Right.
15th will be,
What?
well, that's when our next meeting is scheduled for, right now.
Okay, let's leave it to April 15th.
It's the Monday, right now we're scheduled for the 15th of Monday at 6 o'clock. So we left it, so we'll give you the month off in April. And then you can come back and see us in May,
That's fine.
right?
We'll just deal with this.
Okay, so you're keeping it at 6 o'clock on Monday for next month, but I don't have to be here.
That's correct.
So our next meeting is April 15th at
Yeah.
6 o'clock.
All right,
Okay.
you know what, I will. Linda, minutes, I'll put in minutes, you put in minutes.
So April 15th and 6th.
Can you still send out your monthly report?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Carol, we got you finally. Although I don't know how you.
Lifetime movie.
I don't need other people,
If you're watching.
It's up above there.
sorry,
You might
Oh,
not.
we're done, are we?
It's not in it.
Let's go.
that's us, but that's just us. Yeah,
We're coming.
okay, I think we're done.
Yeah,
Okay, fine.
yeah.
Anything else, any other questions? Motion to adjourn. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks to the full class, really helpful.
This was
I
great.
just have a couple of
Yeah.
ideas, we'll maybe meet with you. Sure.
Yes. Okay, hold on, we,
Highly educated. He loved to read. He was a neurosurgeon. And, I think I remember, it was a number of times when, my dad would try to talk to him about, becoming Christian, and my grandpa wasn't interested. And that was always surprising to me growing up because, we thought that we were told that this was clearly the truth. We just have to look in the Bible, manual verses that back up our beliefs. And, what's more, that this belief system was, it's sort of to get not only to heaven, but to meaning and purpose. And so I couldn't make sense of somebody who I admired and I knew my parents admired and was very accomplished. Who wouldn't, why wouldn't he accept Jesus? Why wouldn't he go along with this? And I write in the book about sort of how I discovered that my parents had been keeping a secret from me about his sexuality. But yes, he as a he just sort of deepened the rift between us. And this was a time when my parents were fully enmeshed in the Christian right, and the moral majority was on the rise in the 80s, and then it wasn't long until the 90s when sort of same-sex marriage began to be on the radar even more. And so there was a real, not only a theological and spiritual split, but a political split there. And really, an intellectual and epistemic split. They saw the world so completely differently. And it was very confusing for me. But it also made me aware that there was a different way of looking at things. And I was always afraid of that, but also a bit curious about it. Let's take a short break. If you're just joining us, my guest is NPR political correspondent Sarah McCammon. She's written a new book called The Evangelicals: Loving, Living, and Leading the White Evangelical Church, which chronicles her own journey and that of a growing number of evangelicals. We'll continue our conversation after a short break. This is Fresh Air. working as a teeth while they're doing this with handcrafted and small batches infused seatbelts, pepper and blends, specializing in flat garlic, rolling rock salt, downtown. This is Fresh Air, and today we're talking to Sarah McKenna, and she's an NPR national political correspondent and co-host of the NPR Politics podcast. She's written a new book that chronicles her own journey, and that of a growing number of evangelicals called the ex-evangelicals, loving, living, and leading the white evangelical church. Sarah covers the political, social, and cultural divides in America, including abortion policy and intersections of politics and religion. You write about that there is no political cause more important than abortion. It felt urgent when you were growing up. You grew up believing that having a baby was the highest calling for a woman. How did that urgency show itself within your family? And I want to know that when you were a teenager, you actually volunteered at a local crisis pregnancy center. I did. And some people will probably be shocked to hear that because I covered this issue, but I would just point out that there are plenty of journalists covering all kinds of issues who've done political work in their younger years. And it's been a very long time. And we were told that children were a gift from God, and that, yes, the highest calling for a woman was to be a mother and a wife. And my parents, especially my mom, would talk about that, in really glowing terms as something that was almost destiny for me. And I would say, I'm a wife and mother, and it's wonderful, and I think it's lovely, but there were other things that I wanted to do with my life too. And I think for us, abortion was viewed as literal murder. It was viewed as the taking of human life. And that's something that I think is important to understand when you understand the politics around this issue, why it's so, why there's such intensity. I mean, certainly there are people who support abortion restrictions who do allow for exceptions in certain cases, but the fundamental belief among a lot of evangelical Christians that, from the moment of conception, a child is a human life and has the same rights as, or should have the same rights as any other person. And as we're seeing, that does shape not only how people do abortion, but also things like in vitro fertilization and potentially contraception. Of course, when I was a little child, I didn't know any of the science behind it. I didn't know how complicated these decisions could be. I just knew what my parents believed and what my church taught. What is that like? Because you journaled a lot, so you can actually go back to your writings during those time periods when you were younger and see how you felt, the strong feelings you felt about abortion or the Clinton impeachment, for instance. Like all of those things you were writing in real time about and had strong opinions about. Now that your worldview is much more expansive and you can see the different points of view, how do you view yourself during that time period? I was just trying to figure things out, I was trying to, and I think everybody is at that age, trying to make sense of the world and trying to, figure out your place in it. I think a lot of us wanted to be part of something bigger than ourselves. And I think most people, I hope so, want to do the right thing. And so I've been told a lot of things about what was right and what my role was both, as a woman and as a Christian. And so I was trying to put that all together, and I think I was operating based on what I knew at the time. I also read some of that, and I feel like maybe I was parroting things I've been told. Although, it was when you've been taught, and you're not sure if you were believing it. That's not what I really thought. I mean, I will say, I grew up in my oldest of 4 kids. I was watching my mom take care of my siblings. I was watching her grow in her pregnancy and feed the baby and bring home all the cool baby stuff. And babies I like babies. They're really cool. And so I think I thought about it in those terms, like baby. And before I grew up, face complicated situations that sort of expand my point of view on just. Our guest today is NPR journalist Sarah Buchanan, author of the new book, Ex-Evangelicals, Loving, Living, and Leading the White Evangelical Church. We'll be right back, unfabulously with this incredible air. Did you